If you want to play games, then play them to the end.
I stood at the kitchen sink washing dishes when my phone buzzed on the counter. My wife Lisa had been away in Costa Rica for nearly a week on what she'd described as a spiritual wellness retreat with her girlfriends. The text message that appeared on my screen made me freeze mid-scrub. "You won't believe this. Just ran into Brandon here at the resort. What are the chances? Be a good boy and don't stress about anything." I read it once, then twice, then a third time, trying to process what I was seeing. Brandon, her college ex-boyfriend, the guy she dated for 2 years before we met. And she wanted me to be a good boy and not stress. The phrasing alone was insulting, like I was some obedient pet instead of her husband. But the coincidence angle was what really made me pause. Costa Rica isn't your neighborhood coffee shop where you casually bump into old acquaintances. It's literally thousands of miles away, on another continent entirely. And Brandon wasn't some globe-trotting adventurer. The last time I'd heard anything about him, the guy barely ventured outside our home state, much less flew internationally. I set my phone back down and mechanically finished the dishes, but my brain was racing. Just 2 days ago, Lisa had called me from the resort, absolutely gushing about how spontaneous and liberating this trip was. How she and her best friend Amanda had decided completely last minute that they needed to escape and reconnect with themselves. Spontaneous was the exact word she'd used multiple times. Right. I dried my hands on the dish towel and picked up the phone again. No follow-up messages, no pictures of this supposedly amazing, coincidental reunion with her ex, nothing at all. That's when a memory surfaced from about a month back. I'd needed to check my email, but my laptop was running system updates, so I borrowed Lisa's computer. When I opened it, I accidentally clicked on her messaging app and saw a conversation thread with someone listed simply as B before she quickly appeared behind me, closed the window, and explained it was just work-related correspondence. Nothing important. B for Brandon. I walked from the kitchen to our shared home office and opened her laptop computer. She'd left herself logged into everything like she always did. She was never particularly careful about security, which had never bothered me before. I wasn't exactly proud of what I was about to do, but that condescending text message had crossed a serious line in our marriage. If she wanted me to be a good boy, that was going to cost her some privacy. Her message history opened without any resistance. I scrolled backward through her conversations until I reached about 3 weeks ago, and there it was staring me in the face. An extensive conversation with Brandon Mitchell that made my stomach twist into knots. "Can't wait to finally see you in Costa Rica. It's been way too long." I know. I've been planning this for months now. Finally found the perfect excuse with this girl's trip idea. Your husband still doesn't know anything? He doesn't suspect a thing. He trusts me completely. Sometimes I think he's way too trusting for his own good. I kept scrolling, my hands slightly shaking. They'd been meticulously planning this reunion for months. The spontaneous wellness retreat story was carefully choreographed fiction. She'd even researched which specific resort he'd be staying at and deliberately booked herself and Amanda into the exact same property. The level of premeditation was absolutely breathtaking. She'd looked me directly in the eyes for weeks, talking earnestly about needing personal space and time for inner growth, while secretly orchestrating plans to meet her ex-boyfriend in a tropical paradise. The deception was layered and extensive. My phone vibrated again with another incoming message. "Hope you're not worrying about me. You know how you tend to get anxious? I'm just catching up with an old friend from the past. Nothing for you to stress yourself over." I stared at the screen in disbelief. She was actually doubling down on the manipulation, painting me as the anxious, neurotic, controlling husband, while she was living her best life with Brandon in Costa Rica. The gaslighting was genuinely impressive in its audacity. But here's the thing she completely miscalculated. I wasn't the same man who used to apologize profusely when she came home late without any explanation. I wasn't the husband who believed every convenient excuse anymore. Something in me had fundamentally shifted. I walked deliberately to the kitchen, grabbed a cold beer from the refrigerator, and sat down at the table. For the first time in many months, I felt completely and utterly calm, almost eerily peaceful. She wanted me to be a good boy and not stress. Perfect. I was about to not stress so thoroughly and completely that it would fundamentally change everything about our relationship. I opened my phone and started typing out a response, but then immediately deleted it. Then I typed something else and deleted that too. No, this situation required more careful thought, more strategic planning, She just inadvertently taught me an invaluable lesson about modern marriage. When your spouse explicitly tells you to relax about their obvious betrayal, maybe it's genuinely time to relax about the entire relationship itself. The game had officially begun, but she had absolutely no idea I was even playing yet. The next morning, I called my office and told them I was taking a sick day. I wasn't actually sick, but I needed dedicated time to think clearly and investigate properly. My wife had been remarkably careless with her digital footprints, and I was going to methodically follow every single one of them. I spent the entire morning going through everything systematically. Her browser history revealed she'd been researching Costa Rican resorts for the past 3 months. She'd looked up Brandon's social media profiles literally dozens of times. She'd even Googled search terms like how to reconnect with an ex without your spouse knowing and meeting ex while married. The planning had been incredibly extensive and detailed. She'd carefully coordinated with Amanda to establish the perfect cover story. She had tracked her menstrual cycle so she'd look her absolute best during the trip. She'd purchased new clothes and strategically charged them to our joint credit card under generic store names so I wouldn't notice or question the purchases. But the most damning evidence existed in her automatic photo backup folder. Pictures from just last week showed her at the resort restaurant, and in several background shots, I could clearly see Brandon sitting nearby. They weren't even trying particularly hard to hide their connection from other people at the resort, just from me specifically. Around noon, my phone buzzed with yet another message from her. Having such an incredible time here. You should really try to relax more often instead of constantly working. Maybe when I get back home, we can plan something fun and spontaneous together. The sheer hypocrisy was absolutely stunning. She was actively suggesting that I needed to learn how to relax while simultaneously betraying our marriage vows. But her condescending tone actually gave me an important idea about how to proceed. I'd been thinking about this entire situation wrong. She wanted me to be passive and blindly trusting. She expected me to respond with either worry or jealousy, both of which would allow her to paint me as controlling. But what if I gave her exactly what she'd explicitly asked for? What if I completely and totally relaxed? That afternoon, I happened to run into Rebecca Thompson from the house next door while I was outside getting the mail. We'd always maintained a friendly neighbor relationship over the past few years, nothing more than that. She was currently going through her own serious marital problems with her husband, Kevin, who'd been treating her progressively worse for many months. You look different today, she observed, studying my face carefully. More peaceful, I think, calmer. Just learned something pretty important about letting go, I told her honestly. Sometimes when people show you who they truly are at their core, the best possible response is to simply believe them. Rebecca nodded with clear understanding. Kevin's been doing essentially the same thing to me, making me feel absolutely crazy for questioning what are obviously lies. I'm completely exhausted from playing detective in my own marriage. We talked for maybe 10 or 15 minutes about marriage, trust, and personal boundaries. It was genuinely the most honest conversation I'd had in many months. Rebecca was intelligent, straightforward, and refreshingly genuine compared to the constant mental games my wife had been playing. You know what? I said somewhat suddenly. I was planning to order pizza tonight and watch something completely mindless on Netflix. You're absolutely welcome to join me if you want some uncomplicated company. She hesitated for just a moment, then smiled warmly. That actually sounds absolutely perfect. Kevin's supposedly working late again tonight. Would 7 o'clock work? Perfect, I'll get the pizza. You bring wine if you want. After Rebecca went back inside her house, I had another important realization. My wife wanted me to relax and not worry about her activities in Costa Rica. Absolutely fine. I was going to relax so thoroughly and completely that I'd have my own activities to not worry about. I spent the rest of the afternoon methodically researching divorce attorneys in our area and carefully organizing all our financial documents. If she could secretly plan something for months, then so could I. But my planning would be for something significantly more permanent than a vacation fling. Around 5 in the evening, she texted again. Brandon's been telling me all about his adventures since college ended. Makes me realize how much I've been missing by staying in one place all these years. Maybe I need more excitement and adventure in my life. I read it carefully twice and actually laughed out loud. She was systematically laying groundwork for future betrayals, probably testing to see exactly how much I'd tolerate before pushing back. She was also clearly fishing for a strong reaction, hoping I'd get jealous and possessive so she could easily paint me as the controlling husband. Instead, I calmly replied, "That sounds absolutely wonderful, honey. I'm having my own kind of adventure here at home. About to have dinner with Rebecca tonight. She's been such genuinely great company while you're away finding yourself." I deliberately didn't mention it was just pizza and Netflix. I'd let her imagination fill in whatever blanks she wanted, just like she'd been doing to me for months. My phone rang within 30 seconds. I let it ring completely through. Then it rang again. On the fourth consecutive call, I finally answered quite casually. "Hey, honey, what's going on?" "What the hell do you mean you're having dinner with Rebecca?" Her voice was suddenly sharp and accusatory, completely different from her previously relaxed text messages. Just being neighborly and kind. She's going through a really tough time with Kevin right now, and I thought some friendly company might help her feel better. You know, similar to how you're catching up with Brandon. The silence on the line stretched for almost 10 full seconds. That's completely different. Totally different situation. How so? Brandon and I have real history together. We're just talking about old times and getting closure. Rebecca and I have history too. We've been neighbors for 3 years now. Seems pretty similar to me. You know exactly what I mean. Don't be deliberately difficult. There it was, laid completely bare. The obvious double standard. She could reconnect with an ex-boyfriend in a tropical paradise, but I couldn't share pizza with a neighbor going through marital problems. I'm not being difficult at all. I'm doing exactly what you explicitly asked me to do. I'm relaxing. I'm not worrying about what you're doing there. And I'm enjoying some company while you're thousands of miles away. Another extended pause. Fine. Just don't do anything stupid. Like what exactly? Order too much pizza? Pick a bad movie? You know what I mean. Actually, I genuinely don't. But I should go now. Rebecca will be arriving soon, and I want to straighten up the place. I hung up before she could formulate a response. My hands were completely steady. My heart rate was perfectly normal. For the first time in this entire mess, I felt like I was actually in control of the situation. Rebecca arrived right at 7 o'clock, carrying a bottle of red wine and wearing a genuine smile. We ordered pizza delivery, opened the wine, and settled onto the couch to watch a comedy special. It was incredibly refreshing to spend time with someone who wasn't constantly playing mental games or dropping subtle manipulations into every single conversation. "You seem lighter tonight," Rebecca commented during a quiet moment between comedy sets. "Whatever's happening with your wife's trip, you're handling it remarkably well." Let's just say I've decided to take her advice seriously and relax more. That's probably genuinely wise. I spent literally months trying to catch Kevin in his lies, and all it accomplished was making me completely miserable. Now I just accept that he's going to do whatever he's going to do. And what are you going to do? Whatever actually makes me happy for a change. We clinked our wine glasses together to that sentiment. Around 9 o'clock, my phone started buzzing repeatedly with incoming texts. I ignored them completely until Rebecca noticed. "You should probably check those. They might be important." I glanced at the screen. 5 separate messages from my wife, each one progressively more frantic than the previous one. "Are you still with her right now? Why aren't you answering me? This isn't what I meant when I said relax. Call me back immediately. I'm seriously coming home early if this continues." I showed Rebecca the last message, and she actually laughed out loud. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly. She's in Costa Rica with her ex-boyfriend, but she's threatening to come home early because you're having pizza with your neighbor? That's essentially the situation, yes. What are you planning to tell her?" I thought carefully for a moment, then typed out, "Having such a wonderful evening. Rebecca is amazing company. Thanks so much for encouraging me to relax and enjoy myself. Hope you're having as much fun as I am right now." I quickly took a photo of our wine glasses and the TV screen in the background, making absolutely sure Rebecca's hand was clearly visible, but keeping everything completely innocent. Nothing inappropriate whatsoever, just enough visual evidence to show I was genuinely relaxed and enjoying myself. I sent both the text message and the photo simultaneously. My phone rang literally immediately. "Let me guess," Rebecca said with an amused grin. "She doesn't like the relaxed version of you." Apparently not at all. I declined the call and switched my phone to complete silent mode, but Rebecca was looking at me with something resembling admiration. "You know what? I think I'm learning something valuable from watching you handle this situation. Kevin's been making me feel absolutely crazy for months now, but you're showing me there's another way to respond to this kind of behavior. What's that? Stop playing their game entirely. Just live your life authentically and let them deal with their own choices and consequences. We finished the comedy special in comfortable conversation. Rebecca helped me clean up the pizza boxes and wine glasses, and as she was preparing to leave around 11, she paused thoughtfully at the front door. Thank you for tonight. I genuinely haven't felt this normal in months. Same here, really. After she left, I finally checked my phone. 14 missed calls and 23 text messages. The emotional progression was absolutely fascinating from a psychological perspective. She'd gone from confident to concerned to angry to desperate in the span of just 2 hours. The last message, sent only 5 minutes ago, was perhaps the most telling. Please call me. I really need to explain about Brandon. It's not what you think at all. I smiled slightly and set the phone aside. Tomorrow was definitely going to be interesting. I woke up the next morning to 37 missed calls and my phone nearly dead from constant buzzing all night long. The messages ranged from desperate pleas to angry accusations to threats about immediately coming home. I plugged in the phone, made fresh coffee, and read through them systematically. The progression was genuinely fascinating. From a psychological standpoint, she'd gone from trying to minimize her situation with Brandon to demanding extremely detailed explanations about my evening with Rebecca. The woman who'd explicitly told me to relax was now sending messages every 10 minutes asking what I was doing. Around 8 o'clock, my phone rang with an unknown international number. I answered it. Finally! I've been trying to reach you all night long. What the hell was last night about? Her voice was strained and exhausted, like she hadn't slept much either. Good morning to you too, honey. How's your vacation going? Don't play dumb with me. You know exactly what I'm talking about. That little performance you put on with Rebecca. Performance? We had pizza and watched comedy. You explicitly told me to relax, so I relaxed. I thought you'd be happy. You know, that's not what I meant at all. Actually, I genuinely don't know what you meant. You're in Costa Rica with Brandon having the time of your life, telling me not to worry and to trust you completely. So I'm simply extending you the exact same courtesy. I'm not worrying about what you're doing there, and I'm trusting you to make good choices. The silence stretched so long, I thought the international call had dropped. It's not the same thing at all. Help me understand how it's different then. Brandon and I, we're just friends now. We needed closure on our past. It's healthy. And Rebecca and I are neighbors being supportive during difficult times in our respective marriages, also healthy. But you sent me that photo on purpose. You were deliberately trying to make me jealous. I had to admire her audacity. She was actually accusing me of playing manipulative games while she was literally on a secret romantic getaway. I sent you a photo of wine glasses and a television. If that somehow made you jealous, maybe you should examine why. Another long pause. I want to come home early. Why would you do that? You said you needed this time for personal growth and finding yourself. You should take all the time you genuinely need. I miss you. That's sweet, but you also said you needed excitement and adventure in your life. Costa Rica with Brandon sounds pretty exciting. Don't cut it short on my account. You're being deliberately cruel. I'm being supportive. I want you to have exactly what you asked for. Complete freedom to explore whatever makes you happy. The call ended abruptly. Either she hung up or the connection finally failed. I went to work and had genuinely one of my most productive days in months. Without the constant anxiety about my wife's behavior, I could actually focus properly. During my lunch break, I called Robert Hayes, the divorce attorney I'd researched the previous day. We scheduled a consultation for the following afternoon. Rebecca texted me around 2. Kevin wants to talk tonight. Any advice from someone handling marital drama better than me? I replied, just remember, you can't control what he does, only how you respond. Stay calm, and don't let him make you feel crazy for having reasonable expectations. Thanks, that actually helps a lot. At 4:30, my wife called again from Costa Rica. I've been thinking about our conversation this morning, and I realize I might have sent the wrong message with my texts about Brandon. I don't want you to think anything inappropriate is happening. I don't think anything inappropriate is happening. I trust you completely. Good. So we're okay then? We're perfect. You're having your adventure, I'm having mine. Everyone's happy. What do you mean your adventure? Just exploring new perspectives, meeting new people, learning about myself. Same as you. What new people? Rebecca and I have become much closer friends. She's incredibly insightful about relationships and personal growth. really helps me understand what I want from life. I don't like where this is going at all. Where what is going? I'm just following your example. You're exploring connections that make you feel alive and excited. I'm doing the exact same thing. It's not the same thing at all. You keep saying that, but you still haven't explained how it's different. Because Brandon and I have history. We're working through old feelings in a mature way. You barely know Rebecca. That's actually true. Rebecca and I are building something completely new. No baggage, no old drama. Just two people discovering they have a lot in common. It's incredibly refreshing. The silence was absolutely deafening. I'm booking a flight home tonight. That seems impulsive. You've only been gone 1 week of your 2-week trip. I need to come home now. If that's what you want. But I should mention I have plans tomorrow evening. Rebecca and I are having dinner to discuss some things Kevin said to her. She really values my perspective on marriage. Cancel it immediately. I don't think that's fair to Rebecca. She's going through a difficult time and could use the support. Just like you needed support from Brandon. That's completely different. You know, you keep repeating that, but from where I'm sitting, it looks exactly the same. Two married people supporting each other through marital difficulties. Both situations involving close personal connection with someone of the opposite sex. Both happening while their spouses are elsewhere. You're twisting this around. I'm not twisting anything. I'm applying your logic consistently. If it's healthy for you to reconnect with Brandon in Costa Rica, then it's healthy for me to connect with Rebecca here. The call ended again. This time I was certain she hung up. An hour later, she texted, "Flight lands tomorrow at 6 p.m. We need to talk seriously." I replied, "Looking forward to it. I have so much to share about what I've learned while you've been finding yourself." Then I called Robert Hayes' office and moved our consultation to the following morning instead. The next morning, I sat in Robert Hayes' office, reviewing documents I never imagined I'd need. Bank statements, property deeds, insurance policies, investment accounts. The attorney was thorough and professional, explaining my options with the kind of clarity I'd been missing in my marriage for months. "Based on what you've shown me, this should be relatively straightforward," Robert said, adjusting his reading glasses. "No children involved, clear documentation of assets. And if she was indeed planning this affair for months, as these messages clearly suggest, we have grounds that work significantly in your favor." "How long does the process typically take?" "Usually 3 to 6 months if both parties cooperate, longer if they decide to fight it." I signed the retainer agreement and left his office with a strange sense of relief. For the first time in months, I had a clear plan forward. At work, I wrapped up outstanding projects and organized my files. If the next few weeks were going to be emotionally complicated, I wanted my professional life to be as smooth as possible. Around lunch, Rebecca texted, "Kevin admitted to the affair. 3 months with a coworker. Says he wants to work on things now that it's out in the open." I called her immediately. "How are you holding up?" "Better than expected, actually. Watching how you've handled your situation this week gave me real perspective. I'm not devastated. I'm just done. What's your next move?" "Meeting with an attorney this afternoon. Kevin can work on himself. I'm working on my exit strategy." "Good for you. You deserve better than someone who lies to your face for months." At 3, my phone buzzed. "Landed early on my way home. We really need to talk." I replied, "See you soon. I have some things to share too." I left work an hour early and stopped by the house to prepare. I gathered all the printed evidence Robert had suggested I compile. Screenshots of her messages with Brandon, browser history showing months of planning, credit card statements for the new clothes and resort bookings, photos from her backup showing Brandon clearly visible. I arranged everything neatly in a folder and placed it on the kitchen table next to the divorce papers Robert had prepared. Then I sat down to wait. She walked in at exactly 5:47, tanned and looking guilty. Her eyes immediately went to the folder and papers. "What's all this?" "Have a seat. You said we needed to talk." She remained standing, arms crossed defensively. "I want to explain about Brandon first." "I'm listening." "It wasn't what you think. Yes, we planned to see each other, but it was for closure. We needed to discuss our past so we could both move forward cleanly. In Costa Rica at the same resort for a week. The location doesn't matter. What matters is nothing inappropriate happened. We're both married people who needed to resolve old feelings." I opened the folder and spread out the printed messages. "These messages suggest otherwise. Can't wait to finally see you. It's been way too long. I've been planning this for months. Your husband trusts me completely." Her face went pale, recognizing her own words. You went through my private messages after you told me to be a good boy about running into my ex? Yes, I did some investigating. Turns out my instincts were correct. Those messages are taken out of context. Really? What's the context for sometimes I think he's way too trusting for his own good? She sat down heavily, finally understanding I had the complete picture. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. How is it supposed to happen? Were you going to confess or just keep lying? I don't know. I was confused. Brandon and I have this history, and when he reached out saying he'd be in Costa Rica, I thought maybe if we spent time together, I could figure out if what we had was worth throwing away my marriage for. The honesty was almost refreshing. And what did you figure out? That I made a terrible mistake. That I love you and want to make this work. Interesting timing. You figured that out right when you saw a photo of me having dinner with Rebecca. That photo scared me. The thought of losing you made me realize what I was throwing away. So you were fine betraying our marriage until you thought I might do the same. It's not the same thing. There's that phrase again. Help me understand how it's different. Because I was confused about my feelings. I needed clarity about my past before I could commit to our future. But you were just trying to hurt me. I stared at her, marveling at the mental gymnastics. Let me make sure I understand. You planning a secret romantic getaway with your ex for months was about clarity, but me having pizza with our neighbor was about hurting you? When you put it like that, it sounds bad. It sounds bad because it is bad. You've been lying to me for months, manipulating me, all while planning to betray everything we built. I know I made mistakes, but we can fix this. I'll cut off all contact with Brandon. We can do counseling. I'll do whatever it takes. I picked up the divorce papers. I've already decided what it's going to take. Her eyes widened. You can't be serious. One mistake and you're ready to throw away 7 years? One mistake? This was a calculated decision you made every single day for months. Every time you looked me in the eye and lied. Every time you made me feel crazy for having reasonable concerns. I'll fight this. You can't just end our marriage because you're angry. I'm not angry. I'm done. There's a difference. What about Rebecca? Is this about her? Rebecca is a friend who's been honest with me. She's not the reason for this decision. You are. I don't believe that. I think you've been planning this. You're right. I have been planning since Tuesday morning when I found your messages. I've been planning my exit. The difference is I'm being honest about it. She started crying, but they felt like strategic tears. Please don't do this. I made a mistake, but I love you. We can get through this. The mistake wasn't going to Costa Rica with Brandon. The mistake was thinking you could manipulate me into accepting it. You told me to be a good boy and relax. So I relaxed. I relaxed so completely that I realized how much better life could be without someone who treats me like an inconvenience. I stood up and handed her the papers. You have 30 days to respond. My attorney's information is on the cover letter. Where are you going? Out to dinner. Rebecca and I are celebrating our freedom from people who don't appreciate what they have. As I reached the door, she called out desperately, This isn't over. I won't make this easy for you. I turned back with a smile. Actually, you already made it easy. All those messages you sent Brandon are going to be very helpful in court. Thanks for documenting everything so thoroughly. I walked out to find Rebecca waiting in her car. She'd left Kevin that afternoon and was staying at her sister's. How did it go? She asked. Exactly as expected. She's shocked that actions have consequences. Kevin was the same way. Where should we celebrate? Somewhere with good wine and no drama. As we drove away, I felt lighter than I had in years. 6 weeks later, I was signing the final divorce papers in Robert Hayes' office. Lisa had initially threatened to fight everything, but once her attorney explained how the evidence worked against her, she'd agreed to a fair settlement. She'd even moved in with Brandon temporarily, which made the proceedings simpler. That's it, Robert said. You're officially divorced as of today. I shook his hand, feeling completion rather than loss. I walked out into a crisp autumn afternoon. The last 6 weeks had been a whirlwind, but also surprisingly peaceful. I'd been sleeping better, working more effectively, and genuinely enjoying life again. Rebecca had gone through her own divorce, which had been messier since Kevin tried to blame her. But last week her attorney had finally worn him down, and she was officially free as well. We'd been spending time together throughout, but carefully. Both of us were cautious about jumping into anything serious too quickly, but there was definitely something growing between us. Rebecca was everything Lisa wasn't. Honest about her feelings, direct in her communication, supportive without being possessive. My phone buzzed. How did the final signing go? I replied, officially a free man as of 20 minutes ago. Dinner tonight to celebrate? My treat. Absolutely, somewhere nice. We've earned it. I drove home to the house I'd bought her out of, which was smaller but entirely mine. Just a clean, organized space that reflected my actual preferences. As I pulled into the driveway, I thought about how dramatically my life had changed since that first text message from Costa Rica 8 weeks ago. I'd been a married man trying to convince himself his wife's disrespectful behavior was normal. Now I was divorced, financially stable, and developing a genuine relationship with someone who actually valued my company. The irony wasn't lost on me. Lisa had told me to be a good boy and relax about her betrayal, thinking it would make me more compliant. Instead, it had taught me exactly what I wasn't willing to tolerate anymore. I'd taken her advice and relaxed, completely relaxed. My grip on a marriage that was making me miserable, and in that relaxation, I'd found something much better. Around 6, Rebecca picked me up for dinner. She looked radiant in a way she never had during her marriage to Kevin. "You look happy," she said. "I feel happy, actually happy, not just pretending." "I know exactly what you mean. Kevin texted yesterday asking if we could try again." I deleted it without responding. How did that feel? Empowering. 6 months ago, I would have spent hours analyzing what he meant. Now I just don't care what he thinks. We went to a nice restaurant downtown. Rebecca ordered confidently and generally acted like an adult enjoying an evening out. "Can I ask you something?" Rebecca said after we'd ordered. "Of course." "Do you ever feel guilty about how things ended, like maybe you should have tried harder?" I thought seriously before answering. No. I tried for months to address problems she refused to acknowledge. I suggested counseling multiple times. The only thing I didn't try was accepting being treated like an inconvenience in my own marriage. Kevin's family keeps telling me I gave up too easily. That's manipulation. You're not responsible for managing another adult's choices. Rebecca smiled and raised her wine glass. To people who mistake boundaries for giving up, to people who know the difference between love and enablement. We clinked glasses and I felt deep gratitude for the entire experience that had led me here. Lisa's betrayal had been painful, but it had also been educational. I'd learned what I actually needed from a relationship. "So what's next for you?" Rebecca asked. "Honestly, I'm looking forward to building something genuine with someone who actually wants to be with me. No games, no manipulation, no wondering if I'm being told the truth." "That sounds perfect." "Same thing. I spent 3 years making excuses for Kevin's behavior. I'm done pretending to be someone I'm not to make someone else comfortable." After dinner, we walked around downtown, talking about everything and nothing. It was the kind of easy conversation I'd forgotten was possible. "Thank you," Rebecca said as we headed back to the car. "For what?" "For showing me how to handle my situation with dignity. Watching you stay calm and strategic instead of getting emotional changed how I approached my own divorce. You would have figured it out on your own. You're stronger than you give yourself credit for." As she dropped me off, Rebecca paused. "I know we're taking things slow, but I want you to know how much I appreciate having you in my life. You make me feel like myself again. You do the same for me." I leaned over and kissed her gently. It was soft and genuine and completely free of tension. Walking into my house, I thought about that text message that started everything. "Just ran into Brandon here. What a coincidence. Be a good boy and relax." Lisa had meant it as a dismissive instruction to stay passive while she explored her options. Instead, it had become the best advice I'd ever received. I had relaxed. I'd relaxed my need to control her behavior, my fear of being alone, and my attachment to a relationship that was making me miserable. In relaxing, I'd found something infinitely better: a peaceful home, a clear conscience, and a developing relationship with someone who saw me as a partner. 6 months ago, I would have been devastated by Lisa's betrayal. Now, I was grateful for it. She'd set me free to find what I actually wanted, and what I'd found was so much better than what I'd lost. Sometimes the best response to someone telling you to relax about their betrayal is to relax about the entire relationship. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is stop enabling someone's selfishness and start living authentically. Lisa had taught me exactly what I didn't want from marriage. Rebecca was showing me what I did want. And for the first time in years, the future felt full of genuine possibility rather than anxious obligation. I was finally and completely relaxed.